Sophia's fingers trembled slightly as she held the warm sponge against the man's cold skin. The bathroom was quiet, save for the soft dripping of water and the occasional gust of wind brushing against the frosted windows. Outside, the sky was gray, clouds heavy with rain. Inside, the silence felt loaded, like something was waiting to happen. The man in the wheelchair, Mr. Thorne, didn't speak. He never did during baths. His eyes were often half-closed, and he barely responded unless she asked a direct question. That's how it had been for the past 3 weeks. Quiet. Awkward. Tense, at times. Sophia was used to caring for people. As a single mother of 2 and a certified caregiver, she'd seen everything from stubborn elderly patients to unpredictable stroke victims. But something about this job was different. Mr. Thorne was a billionaire, or had been. The newspapers said he'd vanished from public life after a mysterious accident left him paralyzed from the waist down. Rumors swirled. A car crash, an attempted murder, a betrayal by business partners. But the official story was vague, just like the job description she'd answered. Now, standing behind him, sponge in hand, Sophia noticed something she hadn't seen before. A raised line. Long, slightly jagged. It ran from the middle of his spine down to the base. She bent closer, narrowing her eyes. That wasn't a surgical scar. Not a burn. It looked like... Mr. Thorne, she asked softly, trying to keep her voice even. Did you get this, recently? His head tilted a bit. What are you talking about? This mark on your back. He didn't answer. She gently ran her fingers along the edge of it. He flinched. Just slightly. His back muscles tensed under her touch. I thought you couldn't feel anything below the waist, she said without thinking. Silence. Sophia immediately regretted it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's fine, he cut in. His voice was hoarse, but deep. Just finish. She dipped the sponge back into the warm water, but her thoughts spun. Why had he flinched? And why did that line on his back feel more like stitching than a scar? Sophia finished the bath quickly, wrapped him in a towel, and helped him back into his robe. He was heavier than he looked, tall, broad-shouldered, with sunken cheeks and distant eyes. The kind of man who had once commanded boardrooms and media attention, but now couldn't even lift himself onto the bed without assistance. As she helped him into the wheelchair, he murmured, "Don't touch that mark again." She paused. Okay. Then, quietly, almost to himself, he added, "It's not what you think." She wanted to ask what it was, but his tone made it clear the conversation was over. That night, after putting her kids to bed, Sophia sat in the small kitchen of the guesthouse behind the mansion. She stirred her tea absent-mindedly, replaying the moment over and over. She'd taken this job out of desperation. Bills had piled up. Her ex-husband had disappeared without paying a cent in child support. And this mysterious offer, live-in caregiver needed for private estate. Discretion required. High compensation, seemed like a miracle. The estate was hidden deep in the hills, surrounded by forests, far from town. No neighbors. No visitors. Just her, a mute housekeeper named Alma, and Mr. Thorne. And secrets. So many things didn't add up. The man had no family photos in the house. No calls came in or out. No doctor ever visited. And for someone supposedly paralyzed, he had an odd strength in his arms, and maybe even more. Sophia wasn't nosy by nature. But tonight, something pulled at her. Something didn't feel right. She pulled out her old laptop and typed into the search bar. Victor Thorne accident truth. Then. Victor Thorne disappearance real story. And finally. Victor Thorne back scar rumors. Articles popped up. Most said the same thing. Victor Thorne had vanished from public life after a tragic accident 2 years ago. His company, Thorne Tech, had been handed over to a board. A few blogs hinted at conspiracies, government espionage, insider sabotage, but nothing solid. Then one forum caught her eye. A user named Backroom Files had posted 6 months ago. "The Victor Thorne you see isn't the real Thorne anymore. Watch his spine." Sophia's heart skipped. Watch his spine. She clicked on the thread, but it had been deleted. The next morning, Sophia walked into the house with a forced smile. Alma, the housekeeper, was already in the kitchen chopping vegetables in eerie silence. She never spoke. Not even when Sophia tried to greet her. Mr. Thorne was in the sunroom, staring out at the trees. His wheelchair sat in a beam of light, but his face was all shadow. She approached him. "Good morning." He didn't answer. "I'll help you get ready for the day," she said softly, setting the bath supplies down. "No bath today," he said suddenly. She blinked. "Are you feeling unwell?" "No. I just said, no bath." She nodded. "All right. Let me know if you need anything." As she turned to leave, he added, "You searched me online last night." Sophia froze. How did he know? She began. "I have alerts set up. Anything with my name gets pinged through a system," he said, still facing the window. "You found the forum, didn't you?" "I didn't mean anything by it," she said quickly. There's a lot I don't understand." He finally looked at her. His eyes were sharp now. Awake. Dangerous. "There are things you don't want to understand, Sophia." She didn't know how to respond. Her stomach knotted. Then his tone softened. "But if you're curious, I won't stop you." That night, she couldn't sleep. The house creaked in strange ways. The wind sounded like whispers. And when she finally drifted off, she dreamed of shadows crawling across a man's back, stitching themselves into his skin. At 2:47 a.m., a knock rattled her door. She jumped out of bed. Her heart pounded. Another knock. Slow. Firm. She opened the door just a crack. Alma stood there. Her face pale. Her hands shaking. She didn't speak, but she held out something. A key. Sophia stared. "What's this?" Alma pointed toward the main house. Then to the east wing. Then she said, barely a whisper, "Before sunrise." Only then. And she turned and walked away. Sophia stared at the key in her hand. What was in the east wing? She'd been told it was sealed off for renovations. But there had been no sounds, no workers. Just locked doors and silence. Now, her hands trembling, she held the key. At 5:04 a.m., before sunrise, she crept through the mansion. Every board beneath her feet seemed to groan louder than it should have. She tiptoed past Mr. Thorne's room. No light. No sound. The east wing hallway was cold. She shivered as she inserted the key into the old lock. It clicked. The door swung open. A wave of cold air hit her. Inside was a room covered in sheets. Furniture draped. Dust thick in the air. She stepped forward slowly. Then she saw it, tucked behind a curtain. A hospital bed. Empty. Next to it, a mirror. Cracked. And beside that, folders. Medical files. She picked one up and flipped through it. Her breath caught. It wasn't about paralysis. It was about nerve grafting. Experimental surgeries. Identity issues. Memory loss. Her hands shook as she read more. Subject shows signs of partial integration. Spinal reinforcement successful. Sensory response returning. Caution advised. Subject: not patient. Suddenly, behind her, a floorboard creaked. She spun around. Nothing. But when she turned back, one folder lay open she hadn't touched. On the top page. Photo, Victor Thorne, deceased. Sophia couldn't breathe. Her fingers hovered above the folder as if it had burned her. The words stamped across the top kept repeating in her mind. Victor Thorne, deceased. Deceased? Then, who had she been bathing for the past 3 weeks? She glanced around the cold, dim room. The broken mirror reflected her pale face and wide eyes. The air felt heavy with secrets. With lies. She stared back down at the folder. Under the photo, there was a death certificate. Real. Official. Issued 2 years ago. The date matched the alleged accident. Cause of death, massive internal trauma. Spine shattered beyond recovery. No possibility of survival. Her hand trembled as she turned the page. More documents. Lab notes. Pages filled with scientific jargon she couldn't fully understand. Something about advanced neural grafts, synthetic spinal cores, and a word she didn't recognize. Mimetic reconstruction. Below that. Test subject, V3. Physical resemblance to donor preserved. Psychological adaptation incomplete. She stumbled back. Test subject. V3. Physical resemblance. Her mouth went dry. Her mind screamed, this isn't just a man with a hidden past. This is something else. She had to get out of that room. The hallway outside felt just as cold. She shut the door behind her and locked it, slipping the key back into her sweater pocket. Her footsteps echoed as she tiptoed past Mr. Thorne's room. But as she passed the door, she heard something. A soft clicking. Then, voices. 2. Not loud, but firm. Urgent. She stopped. Leaning closer, she recognized Mr. Thorne's voice. But the other, deep, mechanical sounding, like a distorted recording. It said. Subject showing signs of awareness in caretaker. Protocol breach imminent. Then Mr. Thorne's voice, low and angry. She's not a threat. Don't interfere. Your judgment is impaired. You're diverging from the program. Silence. Sophia backed away, heart pounding. Her thoughts spun in a dozen directions. What program? Diverging? Protocol breach? She hurried down the hallway like a ghost, her breath barely audible. Later that morning, after barely 2 hours of sleep, Sophia stood in the kitchen trying to pretend everything was normal. The teacup in her hand rattled against the saucer. Alma moved quietly behind her, slicing apples. As always, she didn't speak, but Sophia needed answers. She turned and whispered, "Who is he?" Alma froze. "I saw the file," Sophia added. "I know he's not. Victor Thorne." "Not really." Alma looked around quickly, then placed the knife down. She slowly walked to the window and pointed to the woods beyond the estate. Then she spoke. One word. "Run." Sophia's stomach dropped. "Why?" she whispered. Alma turned to face her fully. For the first time, there was real fear in the woman's eyes. "Because soon," she said, "he won't remember that he liked you." Sophia didn't get a chance to respond. A low hum began to fill the kitchen, like an old generator powering up. Lights flickered. Then the phone on the wall rang. Loud. Sudden. She and Alma both stared at it. No one had ever called that phone. Sophia picked it up slowly. A voice, clear, male, calm, spoke. "You found the file. We need to talk. Come to the greenhouse." "Alone." The line went dead. She turned to Alma, but the woman was already shaking her head, eyes pleading. "I have to know," Sophia said. The greenhouse sat at the edge of the estate. Overgrown vines wrapped around its frame like claws. Inside, it smelled of earth, water, and dying leaves. Mr. Thorne was already there. He sat in his wheelchair, but this time, he wasn't slumped or passive. He was upright. Alert. His eyes locked onto hers. "You weren't supposed to find that," he said. "I had to," she replied. "I saw the scar. I heard your conversation last night." He studied her, then nodded slowly. "They told me this would happen. That I couldn't get close to anyone. That people would ask questions." "Are you human?" she asked, the words sounding insane even to her. His smile was small. "Yes. And no." He gestured to a bench. She sat, her hands clenched together in her lap. He began, his voice steady. "After the accident, I died. Not right away. But I was dying. The impact crushed my spine, my ribs, even my skull. There was no way back." She nodded, silently. "But I had invested," he continued, "in a project. A secret one. A group of scientists, off books, exploring what they called transhuman survival. They believed the body wasn't the limit. That with enough technology, memory, and DNA, we could preserve consciousness." "You mean," she whispered. "They rebuilt me. Piece by piece. Not everything is real now. My spine. My nerves. Even parts of my face. Some of it is synthetic. Some, borrowed." "Borrowed?" He hesitated. "They used parts of another donor. Someone compatible. Someone who didn't survive. That's what you saw on my back. Not a scar. A graft seam." Sophia stared, unable to speak. "But the worst part isn't the physical," he went on. "It's the mind. The confusion. I remember things that aren't mine. I dream in someone else's voice. I feel emotions that don't belong to me." Tears gathered in her eyes. "Why tell me this now?" "Because you touched the truth. And because I don't know how much longer I can hold on." "Hold on to what?" "To being me." That evening, Sophia sat in her guest house, trying to absorb it all. She didn't know whether to cry or run. She had seen cruelty in the world, poverty, betrayal, illness, but this was something else. A man caught between life and death, past and future. Between self and something manufactured. She remembered how he flinched at her touch. Not because he felt pain, but because he still could feel. And now she understood the tragedy. Victor Thorne hadn't just lost his mobility. He had lost his identity. The next morning, Alma wasn't in the kitchen. Unusual. Sophia walked through the main house, calling for her gently. No answer. She found her coat. Her shoes. Her purse. But not Alma. She checked every room, until she reached the east wing. The door was unlocked. Inside, the folders were gone. The hospital bed was stripped. The mirror cleaned. Sophia turned to leave, and saw it. On the wall, scratched into the wood. "Don't trust the man in the wheelchair." Her legs turned to jelly. Had Alma written it? Or someone else? She didn't see Mr. Thorne again for 2 days. He stayed in his room. The door locked. But on the third morning, he called for her. She entered slowly, half expecting someone, or something, else. He looked worse. Pale. Eyes sunken. Hands trembling. I'm losing time, he whispered. I found blood on my hands yesterday. I don't know whose. Sophia felt a chill crawl up her spine. Maybe you should see someone, she offered carefully. A real doctor. A specialist. They'll erase me, he said. You don't understand. They want the version that obeys. Not the one that questions. She didn't know what to say. Promise me, he said suddenly. If I forget who you are, if I change, leave. Take your children and go. Her voice cracked. You're scaring me. Good, he said. Be scared. That means you'll survive. That night, as rain slammed against the roof, Sophia packed an emergency bag. Just in case. Then, after tucking her children into bed, she sat at her laptop one last time. This time, she searched a different name. Thorntech Neural Reconstruction Project. Most results were buried. Deleted. Scrubbed. But one link led to an archived page. A redacted report. It showed photos. Lab rooms. Machines. One showed a man lying on a table, his spine exposed, wires running into his head. Test subject V3. It was him. But in the corner of the photo, another face. Blurred. Small. Sophia zoomed in. Her blood went cold. It was Alma. The image burned into Sophia's mind like a brand. Alma, in a lab coat. Standing in the corner of that cold, sterile room. Watching the procedure being done on Mr. Thorne, no, test subject V3. She zoomed in again. There was no mistaking it. Same calm face. Same sharp, intelligent eyes. Alma had been there. But why hadn't she said anything? Why had she only whispered, "Run"? Sophia closed the laptop lid with shaking hands. Her room felt colder now. The silence around her grew heavy. Even the shadows seemed to stretch longer. She checked on the children. Lily was curled up like a kitten, thumb near her lips. Aiden's arm was flung across the blanket. Innocent. Peaceful. Sophia had to protect them. Even if she didn't fully understand what she was protecting them from. She went to her suitcase, now half-packed, and zipped it closed. She couldn't wait for morning. Something told her she had to leave tonight. But when she turned toward the door, it was open. And standing there, blocking her way, was Mr. Thorne. She froze. His wheelchair was nowhere in sight. He was standing. Sophia blinked. It had to be a hallucination. His legs were useless. She'd seen it. She'd bathed him. But there he stood. Back slightly hunched. His left leg twitching violently. As if it didn't fully obey him. Sophia, he said, voice strained. Don't be afraid. She stepped back, her hand reaching for the lamp on the bedside table. He raised his hands. I didn't mean to frighten you. But I remembered something. Where's Alma? She whispered. His eyes flicked, just for a second, toward the hallway. Gone. She left a note. Sophia didn't believe that for a second. What did you remember? She asked. He moved, limped, into the room. Each step looked painful. Not natural. As if his bones remembered how to walk, but his muscles didn't agree. I remembered her voice, he said. Screaming. While they cut into me. Sophia's heart thudded in her ears. He sank onto the chair beside the door, panting. They lied to me. She lied to me. I thought she was a nurse. But she was part of the team. She monitored my vitals during the surgeries. And she was the one who approved the final phase. What phase? Sophia asked. His eyes locked onto hers. The wipe. Sophia sat down slowly on the bed, her knees giving out. You mean, they erased your memory? Parts of it, he said. When I started asking too many questions. About who I really was. About where the rest of my body came from. Sophia whispered, the donor. He nodded. They never told me his name. But I see flashes. Images. A burning car. Screams. A woman running with a baby in her arms. And I'm not sure if I'm the man in the car or the one watching it burn. He buried his face in his hands. She wanted to comfort him, but fear rooted her in place. This wasn't just a man anymore. This was a ghost of two lives trapped in one broken body. And Alma, she had been part of the creation. Sophia finally spoke, I found a photo. Of you. On the table. Alma was there. Watching. He nodded. She stayed behind after the project shut down. Pretended to be a servant. Watching me. Recording my behavior. Like an experiment, Sophia said bitterly. Yes. But she cared, Sophia said. I saw it. She was scared for you. She tried to warn me. She was scared of who I'm becoming, he replied quietly. And maybe, you should be too. That night, sleep did not come. Sophia sat in the chair by the children's bed, a flashlight in her hand and a kitchen knife under the blanket on her lap. The rain beat hard against the windows. In the distance, lightning cracked across the hills. She couldn't stop picturing Alma's face in that lab. Calm. Professional. How many people had been part of this? How many knew that Victor Thorne wasn't fully himself? And what did the note on the wall mean? Don't trust the man in the wheelchair. Who wrote it? Was it a final warning, or a trick? Morning came slowly, with pale light and the scent of wet leaves. Sophia woke with a start. She had dozed off sometime after 4 a.m. The children were still asleep. She rose, stiff and aching, and made her way to the main house. She needed answers. Proof. Something she could use. She crept down the hallway toward the east wing again. This time, the room was unlocked. She pushed the door open. Nothing. Empty. The desk was gone. The bed, gone. Even the mirror. She opened the closet. Inside, one item remained, a coat. She pulled it out. Alma's coat. She dug into the pockets with shaking fingers. A flash drive. And a torn page with one sentence, scribbled in a rushed hand. He is not who you think he is. Run before the mirror turns. The flash drive took hours to open. Most of the files were encrypted or corrupted. But one video played. Sophia clicked. It was surveillance footage. Dated months ago. Victor, no, V3, sitting in a dark room. No shirt. Electrodes attached to his head and chest. 3 people stood around him. One was clearly Alma. Another wore a lab coat. Male. Heavy set. He checked a clipboard and said. Initiating Phase 4. Emotional response simulation. They turned a screen toward Victor. A video played. A woman crying. A child screaming in the background. Victor flinched. His hands twitched. Then, his voice changed. Low. Rough. He whispered, "That's my wife." Alma turned sharply toward the camera. The screen went black. Sophia slammed the laptop closed. She couldn't take it anymore. She packed the flash drive into a box and hid it in her backpack. Then she went to get her children. It was time to leave. She didn't care about the paycheck. She didn't care about the silence clause in the contract. Whatever this was, it was beyond science. Beyond ethics. It was playing with souls. She opened Aiden's door. His bed was empty. So was Lily's. She ran down the hallway, screaming their names. No answer. Panic twisted in her gut like a blade. She checked every room, every closet. Nothing. Finally, she burst into the back garden. There, near the hedge, stood Mr. Thorne. And beside him, Aiden and Lily. They were laughing. Lily held a flower. Aiden had a wooden toy. They looked happy. Untouched. Sophia ran to them and scooped them up. "Don't ever leave the room without telling me again," she scolded, heart racing. Mr. Thorne looked at her. "They knocked. I thought it would help to let them play." His voice was soft. But she couldn't shake the chill. "Next time," she said tightly, "ask me first." He nodded, eyes lowering. "I'm sorry." But something in his expression, it wasn't guilt. It was calculation. That evening, she made a decision. She waited until the children were asleep. Then she tiptoed down the hallway, avoiding every creaky floorboard. She went to the garage. She needed the car keys. She would leave tonight. But as she opened the door, she saw it. The car was gone. The garage was empty. And on the floor, near the door, Alma's scarf. Blood-stained. Sophia backed out slowly. Her phone was dead. Landlines disconnected. No signal. No exit. She was trapped. She ran to the kitchen, grabbed the emergency flashlight and a small hatchet from under the sink. Just in case. Her instincts screamed one thing now. This wasn't just a mystery anymore. This was survival. And then, she heard the voice behind her. "I didn't want it to end like this." She spun around. Victor. Standing again. Straight this time. Calm. But in his eyes, something had changed. It wasn't pain. It wasn't sorrow. It was something cold. Remote. Like a shadow finally taking over. He stepped closer. "I remember now. Who I was before. Who I really am." Sophia gripped the hatchet tighter. "Who are you?" she asked. He smiled. "I was never Victor Thorne." Sophia gripped the hatchet tighter, her knuckles turning white. The dim kitchen light flickered above her as the man she had once cared for, the man she had fed, bathed, helped dress, now stood before her, eyes gleaming with something dark and unfamiliar. "I was never Victor Thorne," he said again, his voice eerily calm. "What do you mean?" she whispered. "I mean," he said, taking a step forward, "Victor Thorne died. In the fire. In the explosion. What's standing in front of you is what was left behind. The body they pieced together. But the mind? The identity?" He paused, tilting his head. "That's where things get complicated." Sophia's heart pounded so loud it muffled his words. Behind her, the hallway stretched out like a tunnel, the only way back to her children. Every nerve in her body screamed, "Run. Now." "I have memories," he continued. "Of 2 lives. 2 men. One was Thorne. The millionaire. Arrogant. Cruel. The other. I don't know his name. I just remember being poor. Hungry. Running from something. Watching my family burn." He took another step forward. Sophia didn't move. "And now?" she asked. "Who are you now?" He smiled, and something in it chilled her to the bone. "I think I'm both. Or neither. Depends on the day." The silence between them grew thick, like fog. Outside, thunder rolled again. The house groaned in the wind. "You need to leave," he said softly. She blinked, surprised. "What? You and your children. You were kind to me. You didn't deserve to be dragged into this. I thought I could hide from it all, the past, the experiments, Alma's guilt. But I can't. They're coming. I can feel it." "Who's coming?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked down at his shaking hands. "The people who built me. Who broke me. They want the data. Alma took it. You probably have it now." Sophia's mind flashed to the flash drive in her bag. He looked up at her again. "They'll kill to get it back." Sophia didn't wait for more. She bolted past him, racing down the hallway. Her feet hit the stairs like thunder. She flung open the children's door. Lily stirred, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy?" "Shoo, baby," Sophia said, lifting her gently. "We're going for a ride." Aiden sat up, confused. "What's going on?" "No time to explain. Just hold my hand." She packed what little she could carry, the flash drive, bottled water, some cash, a blanket, and tiptoed down the back stairwell. The garage was still empty. But there was an old gardener's shed at the edge of the estate. She'd seen it once, barely standing under vines. Maybe there was a tool. A bike. Anything. The wind howled as they stepped outside. Rain stung her skin like needles. Aiden held tightly to her waist, Lily tucked under her coat. The path was slippery, the mud thick. The flashlight blinked weakly. She saw the shed, leaning to one side, half its roof torn off. She pulled the door open. Inside, rusted tools, rotting wood, and in the corner, a motorbike. Dusty. But the tires were full. "Please work," she prayed. She set the kids down under the awning and yanked the bike forward. She didn't know much about engines, but she found the key taped to the underside of the seat. She turned it. The engine coughed. Again. It coughed louder, then roared to life. She gasped. She turned to get the children, and froze. They were gone. The flashlight flicked across the yard. Aiden's jacket, lying in the mud. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She ran back toward the house, screaming their names. And then she heard it. A voice. Calling from the trees. Not hers. Not Victor's. Mechanical. Cold. Sophia Martinez. "Return the data. Return the children. You are trespassing on government property." She ducked instinctively. A red laser scanned across the yard. She crawled behind a wheelbarrow, heart racing. She peeked up, and saw them. 3 figures in black. Masks. Carrying what looked like rifles. They weren't police. They weren't humanitarians. They were extraction agents. Her mind raced. Victor was right. They had come for the data, and him. And if they had the kids? She had no choice. She had to go back inside. The front door stood open. She crept in, barefoot, dripping. Everything was silent. Too silent. Then a scream pierced the air, Aiden's voice. It came from the basement. She ran. Down the stairs. Past the wine racks. Through the old laundry room. Into a room she hadn't seen before. And there, lit by a flickering bulb, stood Victor. And behind him, the children. "Let them go," she screamed. He didn't move. "They were coming to take them," he said. "To erase their memories. Like they did to me. I couldn't let that happen. Aiden cried, he helped us, Mom. Lily nodded, clinging to Victor's arm. Sophia didn't know what to think anymore. Who are you really? She asked again, her voice breaking. He turned toward her, slowly. Eyes full of pain. I'm the mistake they tried to bury, he said. But I won't let them do to your kids what they did to me. The ceiling shook above them. A crash. Footsteps. They're here, Victor whispered. He opened a cabinet in the wall. Inside, a tunnel. Go, he said. Take the kids. Follow the light. It leads to the cliffs. There's a boat. Alma prepared it. Sophia hesitated. What about you? I'll hold them off. She couldn't move. She couldn't leave him. But Aiden tugged her hand. Please, Mom. She looked into Victor's eyes one last time. I hope you find the rest of your memory, she whispered. He smiled, a sad, human smile. I hope I don't. The tunnel was narrow and damp. But it glowed faintly at the end. They ran. Behind them, gunfire. Screams. A roar. The ground shook. Lily sobbed. Aiden ran silent and pale. They burst out onto the cliffs. The sea roared below. And there, tied to a dock hidden under ivy, was a small motorboat. Sophia loaded the children in, started the engine, and cast off. The wind howled. Waves slapped the side. She looked back one last time. The estate, Victor's home, was burning. They reached shore at dawn. A hidden beach. A wooden path. And parked at the top, a dusty old van. Inside, the keys. A note on the seat. Written in Alma's handwriting. You made the right choice. Keep the drive safe. And never speak of Victor again. Sophia drove without stopping for hours. They crossed counties. Changed clothes. Ate fast food in silence. Aiden finally asked, Is he gone? Sophia didn't answer. She didn't know. That night, in a roadside motel, after the children had fallen asleep, Sophia plugged the flash drive into her new laptop. One file remained. An audio log. She clicked play. It was Alma. Her voice was calm but heavy. If you're hearing this, it means Victor remembered. I did what I could to delay the process. I thought keeping him in the mansion, surrounded by reminders of his past life, would ground him. I was wrong. His brain wasn't just reconstructed. It was fused, with another man's. One full of rage and loss. Sophia closed her eyes. Alma continued. We thought we could create a new man. Better. Stronger. More compassionate. But you can't stitch together a soul. Some things aren't meant to be saved. If you've escaped, protect the children. Burn this drive after listening. And please, forget us. Sophia stared at the screen for a long time. Then she pulled the drive out. Lit a match. And watched it burn in the motel sink. She and the children settled in a quiet town up north. She got a job cleaning offices. Enrolled the kids in school. Told them it was a fresh start. But sometimes, late at night, she still hears the wind howl like it did on the cliffs. Sometimes, she dreams of a man walking without a name. And sometimes, she wonders if he survived the fire. If he's still out there. Trying to remember which man he used to be. It had been 3 months. Sophia no longer woke up shaking in the middle of the night. The nightmares came less often, though they never stopped entirely. The faces of the masked men. The explosion. Victor's haunted eyes. The fire. The tunnel. The boat. Some memories refused to fade. But she was determined to build something new, something normal. The small coastal town of Rosehill was quiet, surrounded by pine trees and rocky beaches. She rented a little cottage on the edge of town. Aidan was back in school. Lily had made a friend next door. The town didn't ask too many questions. That was what Sophia loved most. She got a job cleaning a dentist's office and did night shifts in a small hotel. She told people she had moved from out west after a bad divorce. Nobody pried. Nobody knew the truth. Nobody asked about the strange man she'd cared for, or what she had seen in that mansion. One evening, while wiping down the check-in counter at the hotel, Sophia saw a shadow move past the glass doors. She froze. It was probably just a guest. But her heart was already racing. She peeked out, nothing. Still, she locked the front doors just in case. She'd developed certain instincts since that night. The feeling that someone was watching. Listening. Waiting. She thought they'd stop after a while. But they didn't. Not really. Later that night, while checking laundry downstairs, she found something she hadn't noticed before, a folded sheet of paper inside one of the pillowcases. It was written in a careful, neat hand. Stop asking questions. Forget him. For your sake. Her hands trembled. She hadn't asked questions. She hadn't told anyone. So who left the note? And who knew she was still thinking about him? Back home, Sophia placed the note in the back of her closet, inside an old book. She didn't tell the children. But the fear returned, heavy and suffocating. That night, she dreamt of Victor. He stood at the edge of a cliff again, staring out at the ocean. But this time, he turned to face her. His eyes weren't empty. They burned. They lied to you, Sophia, he said. She woke with a scream. The next day, she found a letter in her mailbox. No stamp. No address. Just her name. Inside, a photo. It was old. Grainy. Taken years ago. But the man in the photo? It was Victor. He wasn't in a wheelchair. He was standing, wearing a military uniform. Behind him were other men, and a flag. She flipped it over. A note was scribbled on the back. Project Ghost, Site 9, Nevada. He was never just a tycoon. Sophia's head spun. Victor had told her he remembered being in a lab. He said they rebuilt him. She thought it was trauma. Delusion. Amnesia. But what if it wasn't? What if he was telling the truth? She stared at the picture for hours. Then she did something she hadn't done in weeks. She Googled the words, Project Ghost Nevada Site 9. Nothing useful came up at first, just conspiracy theories and message boards. But one result stood out, an old blog post from 5 years ago, written by a man named Gregory Tennant, claiming he was a former government contractor. He wrote, Site 9 was real. I helped build the lab. They said it was for prosthetic research. But the tech they used? It wasn't from any textbook. We had contracts with private biotech firms, most of them nameless. I quit after a man died on my table, and got back up 2 days later. He didn't remember who he was. They said it was a success. Sophia sat back in her chair, heart thudding. Victor. She messaged the author. At first, no reply. Then, 3 days later, a response. Meet me in person. I don't talk online. Too many eyes. Bring the photo. He left an address in Arizona. Sophia stared at it for a long time. She wanted to forget everything. Start fresh. But something inside her wouldn't let go. She needed the truth. She booked a babysitter, told the children she had to visit a sick cousin, and took a Greyhound bus south. Arizona was hot and dry. Cactus stretched along the roads like ghostly arms. The address led her to a broken-down house on the edge of the desert. Most windows were boarded up. The porch creaked with every step. She knocked. A man in his 60s answered. Bald. Glasses. Wrinkled hands. He studied her carefully before opening the door wider. "You brought it?" Sophia nodded and handed him the photo. He looked at it for a long time. "Yep," he finally said. "That's him." Back then they called him Subject V7. Sophia's breath caught. V for Victor? No, Tennant said. V for volunteer. He signed up. They all did. But no one told them what they were volunteering for. Inside, the house was dark and smelled of dust. Papers and files were stacked everywhere. Machines buzzed on tables. Sophia sat across from him, clinging to her bag. "What was Project Ghost?" she asked. Tennant lit a cigarette. Ghost stood for Genetically Honed Operative Simulation Trial. Fancy way of saying they wanted to rebuild soldiers. Mind, body, and memory. A kind of resurrection. They used brain mapping, synthetic nerves, even early AI. He paused. But it didn't work right. Most subjects lost parts of themselves. Memories vanished. Others went mad. Sophia stared at him. Victor said he had 2 lives in his head. 2 men. Is that possible? Tennant nodded slowly. Yeah. There was a batch where memory patterns got crossed. A soldier and a civilian. The system tried to merge them. But the result wasn't stable. He looked at her. If Victor was V7, he was one of the only ones who survived. Sophia's stomach twisted. So what do they want from him now? Same thing they always wanted, Tennant said. The data in his brain. He's the key. A living blueprint. If they find him, they'll take him apart and rebuild him again. Or worse, replicate him. He leaned forward. They never cared about his soul. Just the science. Sophia whispered, "Is he still alive?" Tennant looked away. "I don't know. But if he is, he'll come looking for you." That night, back at the motel, Sophia turned on the bathroom light and stared at herself in the mirror. Was she a single mom? A nurse? A fugitive? Or the keeper of a secret too big for the world? She opened her bag and took out the photo again. Victor stood tall, proud, unaware of the nightmare he was walking into. She thought of the man she had bathed, fed, talked to for weeks. The man who laughed when Lily told silly jokes. The man who cried quietly when he couldn't remember his mother's name. The man who risked his life so they could escape. He was more than a project. He was human. She flew back to Rosehill the next morning. When she reached home, she found Lily drawing on the porch. "Hi, Mommy," she shouted, running into her arms. Aidan peeked out from the kitchen. There was a man who came by. Sophia froze. "What man?" "I don't know. He didn't come inside. Just left this." He handed her a sealed envelope. No name. No return address. She opened it slowly. Inside, a note written in shaky handwriting. It said, "They know you went looking. Leave town. Now. Take the kids. If I don't contact you in 72 hours. I didn't make it. V." Sophia's hands trembled. He was alive. And he was still protecting them. But the clock was ticking. She had 72 hours. And no idea where to run next. The wind had picked up that morning. Sophia stood on the porch with the letter in her hand, the last few words still burned into her mind. If I don't contact you in 72 hours. I didn't make it. V. She had seen enough to know this wasn't a bluff. Victor was running. Hunted. And now, so was she. She stepped inside quickly and locked the door. Aiden and Lily sat on the living room floor, playing with building blocks. She had 3 days. 3 days to vanish. 3 days to decide whether to run again, or fight for the truth. She didn't know which was more dangerous. That night, she packed bags quietly. Essentials only: IDs, cash, a burner phone, and the photo Victor had once slipped into her hand before the explosion. She opened her laptop one last time and searched the words. Project Ghost Survivors. Most links were conspiracy fluff. But buried on page 7 of the results was something different, a scanned article from a 2006 local paper. War veteran disappears from rehab facility after talking of secret experiments. The man's name: Elliot Crane. Former Army major. Discharged under mysterious health conditions. Last seen at a veterans hospital in Nevada. Sophia leaned closer. He claimed he remembered being rebuilt. Just like Victor. But Elliot had vanished before the press could follow up. Sophia sat back. Victor had mentioned a name once, in passing. Crane knew. But he disappeared. She thought he was rambling from the drugs. But now, it made sense. Maybe Crane knew how to stop this. Maybe he wasn't gone. Maybe she could find him. And maybe, just maybe, he could lead her to Victor. By morning, Sophia had made up her mind. She pulled Aiden aside while Lily slept. I need you to be brave, she said, kneeling down. We have to go away again. Somewhere safe. Because of the bad people, he whispered. She nodded. But we'll be together? Always. He hugged her tight. Then I don't care where we go. They left Rosehill by bus. Sophia paid in cash. No tickets. No ID. They changed buses 3 times, moving south through quiet towns and forgotten highways. The world blurred into deserts and truck stops. Finally, after 2 days, they arrived in Las Cruces, New Mexico, a place as dry and empty as it sounded. Sophia followed her one and only lead, a care facility mentioned in the article, Los Palmos Veterans Home. It still existed. But most of the staff had changed. Only one nurse remembered Elliot Crane. He didn't speak much, she said. Mostly mumbled about memory implants. Said he saw people walking who'd already died. Do you know where he went? Sophia asked. The nurse hesitated. After he left, a woman came by asking the same thing. Said she was his sister. But she wasn't. Looked military. Sharp. Cold. What did you tell her? Nothing. I lied. Told her he'd died the week before. Sophia leaned in. But he didn't, did he? The nurse gave her a long look. No. He left with someone. Young guy in a red jacket. Looked scared out of his mind. They went off in a black pickup. That's all I know. For the first time, Sophia didn't feel alone. Someone else had tried to escape the same nightmare. She walked out of the facility and called the burner number Victor had once used. Still dead. She stared at the desert sky. If he was still out there, he was running out of time. And so was she. Later that evening, her phone buzzed. A message popped up from a blocked number. Don't go to the motel. They're already there. East Tunnel. Old rail line. Go now. V. Her blood froze. How did he know where she was? She grabbed the kids, left through the back window, and ran 3 blocks to the old train yard. There, hidden beneath rusted freight cars, she found a narrow tunnel entrance. Inside, cold darkness. The sound of dripping water. And a figure waiting in the shadows. Victor. Alive. Barely. He looked thinner. Pale. His arm was in a sling, and there were bruises along his neck and temple. But his eyes, they burned with the same fierce intensity as before. Sophia ran to him. I thought you. They tracked you through that photo, he said, voice hoarse. It had a microtag. I didn't realize until after you left for Arizona. I sent the warning too late. I met someone, she said. Tenant. He told me everything. About Site 9. The experiments. You weren't just rich, you were one of them. Victor shook his head. Not one of them. I was a tool. A weapon. I didn't know who I was for months. But then, you came along. His eyes softened as he looked at the children. And you reminded me I was human. They didn't have long. Distant sirens echoed through the tunnels. Victor reached into his coat and pulled out a small black drive. This has everything, he said. Blueprints. Data logs. Names. Locations. It's enough to bury them. But only if it gets to the right hands. Sophia took it. Who? A journalist I once trusted. Alan Quaid. Works out of Denver now. Won't be easy to reach. But he'll listen. He placed something else in her hand, a pendant. Tiny. Silver. It opened to reveal a photo of a woman and child. My wife, he said quietly. From my first life. They're gone now. I never got to say goodbye. Sophia closed it gently. I'll make sure your story doesn't die. He looked at her, eyes filled with gratitude and sorrow. You have to go. I'll draw them away. I still have some tricks left. She shook her head, tears falling. No. We can all go. We can hide again. They'll never stop, he said. Not if they know I'm alive. A beat passed. Then he pulled her into a fierce hug. For once in my life, he whispered, I'm choosing who I want to be. Sophia ran. Out through the tunnels, the children in her arms. Behind them, gunfire echoed faintly. The last time she saw Victor, he was walking into the dark, head high, unafraid. 2 weeks later. Denver. Sophia sat across from Alan Quaid in a cluttered newsroom. He looked through the drive, his expression changing with each document. This is massive, he said. If this is real. It's real, Sophia said. He nodded. Then this could bring down entire agencies. Maybe even the people who funded them. He looked at her carefully. Are you ready for what comes next? She thought of Victor. Of his laugh. His strength. His humanity. And then, she nodded. Yes. The story broke a week later. Headlines screamed. Secret government program used wounded veterans for brain experimentation. Whistleblower drive reveals dozens of illegal trials. Anonymous caregiver uncovers Project Ghost. The nation was stunned. Names were exposed. Programs were shut down. And Project Ghost? Buried, permanently. Or so they said. Back in a quiet town far from everything, Sophia watched the news fade from the screen and looked outside. The sun was rising. Aiden was in school now. Lily had joined a music class. Life was simple again. But some mornings, she still found herself listening for footsteps. Waiting for a knock that never came. And every year, on the same date, she visited the cliff near the ocean, where she once imagined Victor standing. She'd lay the silver pendant on a rock, whisper a few words, then walk away. She never saw him again. But in her heart, she knew he had found peace. Final lesson. In a world driven by control and silence, truth often hides in the shadows, guarded by those with nothing left to lose. But sometimes, all it takes is an ordinary soul, a single mother with nothing but courage, to shine a light where no one dared look. Because survival is not just about escaping the fire. Sometimes, it's about facing it, and walking through it for someone else.